Alright my friends, welcome back to All Cars. I'm John, and today we're going to do another retro review, this time from Motorweek, the 91 off-road SUV Comparo. This is continuing my recent look back at some older SUVs like the Montero and the Trooper, and I stumbled across this one, so we get to look at a clump of them all together. I love this period where you had SUVs that weren't car-like, they weren't unibodied, they weren't just basically tall station wagons, right? And you had some really good stuff back then that's very memorably good and could be taken out on the trails. Now, I'm not discounting, certainly things like the Grand Cherokee, they're eminently capable, but this was when they were a little more pure, if you know what I mean. They were a little more distilled. They weren't all luxury. It was a little more purposeful, so I'm really excited to see these. Let's jump in. If I press the button.
Four-door sport utility wagons are just about the hottest selling vehicles on the market today. Consumers are snapping them up for their sporty, aggressive styling, generous cargo room, and all-weather performance. But there's another side to these vehicles that most of their owners will never see, and that's the serious off-road performance that these mostly truck-based wagons offer. So we decided to gather 5 of the most popular of these so-called sport utes to see how they would respond to rugged off-road use, and also to show the owners of these 4x4s just what they're missing. We asked 5 manufacturers to send us an example of their 4-door multi-purpose sport utility wagon equipped with the most popular options. So it was with great anticipation that we took delivery of our 1991 models: the Chevrolet S10 Blazer Sport, a Ford Explorer Eddie Bauer, a Jeep Cherokee, Nissan's Pathfinder SE, and a Toyota 4Runner SR5. And they all arrived pretty evenly matched and in top-level trim, with one exception. Jeep sent us their new 4-door sport model Cherokee. It included the important features of 4-speed automatic transmission, select track with full and part-time 4-wheel drive, their most powerful inline-6 engine, and aggressive Goodyear Wrangler tires on an otherwise base truck. While we realized that with its base interior, it would not measure up evenly in comfort and convenience features against its plusher competitors, we felt that for the narrow off-road scope of our test, it would do just fine.
So let me jump in there. I mean, what a good selection. You know, it's interesting that the Montero and the Trooper are not included, but certainly the Toyota is legendary reliability and very good off-road. This is the Pathfinder. Come on, back when the Pathfinder was, well, a real Pathfinder. I really like that vehicle. If you've watched my Sport Truck Comparo Retro review reaction, you know I really like the old hard body, right? And that's just the SUV version of it. I've owned one of these Jeeps, a little bit newer than this and a little bit better equipped, but legendary vehicle. Absolutely love it. I thought it rode good. I thought it handled good. It was a little smaller inside. I think that's going to knock this one down from top place. It was a little, it was smaller. I don't want to say it felt sportier, right? But it definitely, it felt light and kind of tossable and just incredible. The Explorer, I suspect it'll do pretty good on-road, pretty bad off-road. The Explorer has always felt big and heavy, but it was the one that, to me, as much as I hated it back when it was new, it was the one that really saw the change in people to more creature comforts, to more luxury, and using it as a family wagon rather than it needs all this off-road capability. For that reason, I think it'll probably do pretty well in the test overall. The Blazer, I'm not a fan, guys. I'm not. You know, the styling's pretty cool on this one. I like it all squared off, and it had a really nice, if I have a chance, I'll stop it and show you, but it had a really nice styling touch. But if this is what I think it is inside, it's nasty inside. But does tend to be pretty capable. If nothing else, it manages to do this stuff. I just think it'll come across extremely crude in the test. So let's see what they say.
We assembled the group at our off-road test facility, a local gravel quarry that offers a mixed bag of terrain well suited to our stock trucks and our mixed bag of drivers. The mud, sand, hills, and water there are typical of the kind of terrain these trucks might encounter. All the wagons had auto-locking front hubs with four-wheel drive transfer cases that can be engaged while moving. Things started off slowly with a simple log crossing that posed no substantial challenge to the sport utes, but allowed us to size up the trucks in terms of ground clearance and suspension compliance. Of the wagons, the Ford sits the lowest due to its low-hanging leaf spring shackles, while the Nissan, aided by its tall 31 by 10.5-inch off-road tires, standard with the SE package, was the highest of the bunch. All but the Nissan had 15-inch mud and snow radials in either 225 or 235 size. We moved next to the hill climb, where power was king. In our case, the Jeep, with its 190 horsepower 4-liter inline six, charged up the hill with no running start needed. With the highest torque rating at 230, the Blazer's 4.3-liter V6 powered it up with little difficulty. Although numerically in the middle in terms of power, the Ford's 4-liter V6 made it available at a much lower RPM than the others, giving it a very usable power curve and a relatively easy hill climb. The Nissan and Toyota, both sporting willing but overmatched 3-liter V6s, tended to struggle a bit near the top. On rutted paths.
Yeah, I'm not surprised at that. I'm a little surprised that the Nissan was the tallest. I guess maybe I'm not once I actually stop and think about it. But I guess I'm not surprised at those results for the hill climb. I mean, certainly I think the Jeep would do the best. I love that engine. It was a thirsty beast. It really was. And that's why I ended up getting rid of mine back in the day. I was commuting in traffic, and it was just, the gas was killing me at the time. And I guess I'm not really surprised at the S10 either. With that engine, it's a powerful engine. It's a good engine, and like they say, it creates good torque down low. The Explorer was a little bit of a surprise until they actually described it. I think of the Explorer as being so soft. There's so many times I've seen Explorers actually bogged down and stuck somewhere. But those Nissan, the Toyota engines, the smaller engines, they tend to make their power higher. It might be very smooth engines. They might be capable, but the 4-liter in the Ford creating torque down lower, I can understand why it did better.
We found the Explorer and the Blazer with their longer wheelbases and softer suspensions to give the most comfortable rides. The Toyota and Nissan suspensions were stiffer with less comfortable seats. We also found the imports less maneuverable in tight spaces than any of the domestics.
Yeah, and that's my opinion. It has been my opinion of Toyotas for, well, literally decades now. I've said it many times about their trucks. They ride so rough. I'm surprised they said the same thing about the Nissan, but it was truck-based.
On the other hand, the Jeep was the most maneuverable, but it had a fairly harsh ride. To be fair, the optional gas shocks not on our test truck do improve the ride a good deal. While sizing up our mud hole, we decided to send out one truck to make some ruts for it and the others to follow later. The Jeep put up a good fight, but after the Jeep had paved the way, so to speak, it and the others made it through, though techniques did vary somewhat. Traction was good in all trucks, though the Nissan held a bit of an edge with its bigger tires. To help us wash off some of this goo and give our...
Come on, show each one of them going through it. That's just, quit cut rating this thing. And come on. It's very telling. In spite of the bigger tires on the Nissan, in spite of Toyota's reputation, when it came to plowing a path, they chose a Jeep. I mean, it got stuck, but they chose a Jeep.
Testers a chance to finalize their opinions, We headed for our old watering hole to splash around a bit. As expected, there were no shortage of volunteers here. Everyone enjoyed evaluating their favorites.
Okay, this right here. Come on. This is the automotive equivalent for you and me, auto fans, right? Fans of SUVs. This is the equivalent of that picture you always see online, right? Of the beautiful woman in a bikini standing, the sun's behind her. She's in the ocean. She's flipping her hair back. That's what that is. Come on.
With the 5 vehicles being so close in purpose and subjected to such a narrow test as ours, it was tough to pick one overall off-road champ. In fact, we have 2 favorites, the Chevy S10 Blazer and our Driver's Choice Award winner, the Ford Explorer. The Chevrolet earned praise for its solid overall feel, torquey engine, comfortable ride, compliant suspension, and excellent steering feel.
Very, very good review. I expected that to be worse. I expected the ride to be criticized. I expected the interior comfort to be criticized. And I've always thought of the S10 Blazer as quite a bit smaller than the Explorer, but that was glowing. I'm really surprised. This is only 6 minutes and 30 seconds long. I wish they were taking more time to really delve into it, show each one of them, show the interiors. Certainly I expect the Explorer to do well, which it is relative to the Jeep, just because it's a much, much bigger vehicle.
Our drivers equally liked the Explorer's suspension and steering and were impressed by its intelligent use of power. And novices will appreciate the simple-to-engage push-button 4-wheel drive system.
Yeah, and again, while I don't love the Explorer back then, it is amazing to watch this now and see just how Bronco 2-ish the front looked. I mean, that's what it replaced, and the front of it just looks like a Bronco 2 from certain angles. It is a comfortable hauler that can do some off-roading, but really was meant to replace the station wagons of the day. You know, in hindsight, I guess it's not a bad vehicle, right? But here's my choice, because I had one.
The Jeep Cherokee was close behind. Despite its overwhelming edge in horsepower and excellent maneuverability, it lost favor due to a harsh ride and a somewhat vague 4-wheel drive shift lever.
I guess I can't argue with that too much. I want to, but I always thought the Jeep rode pretty well. It was not quite truckish. I mean, certainly if you drove like a Tacoma and then you got into the Jeep, I think you'd find the Jeep much more compliant, but it always had that maneuverability that they described. It was always fun to drive and just, oh, so much torque. It felt wonderful. I'll agree about the 4-wheel drive shift lever. It was always a little mushy to engage. Still, I'd rather have that than just press a button and pray.
The Nissan Pathfinder and Toyota 4Runner were a bit underpowered for this matchup. And while both offered superior ground clearance, they were hampered by poorer maneuverability, plus bouncy rides and some subjective details such as visibility, step-in height, and seating position. While we know that few owners of these capable 4x4 wagons will ever get up to their hubs in mud, it's comforting to know that they can handle tough situations. Among our 5 sport utilities, the advantages and disadvantages were often subtle, and given the chance to take any one of them off into the bush, none of us would refuse.
Yeah, I think the one thing I really would have liked to have seen more was, again, more about the interiors. This was all about, well, off-road SUV Comparo. I didn't realize this was going to be the SUVs purely off-road. But more talk about the difference in the interiors. I think the Ford would have scored very, very well there. The pre-redesigned Cherokee here, it was okay. I thought it was kind of an ugly interior. But then the usable space, the back seat, the seat comfort, things like that. Because I don't think the Cherokee would have done very well. It was smaller and it had good space, but certainly when you looked at the beginning there, they had the hatch open and they showed it. It's squared off with that big tire sitting right there. I just would have liked more. I would have liked that to be several minutes longer and share more information about when people were choosing these, sure, they have this off-road capability, let's test that, but now you've got to go to the grocery store. Now you've got to do that daily commute. That's how people actually use the vehicles, whether we want to admit it or not. And that's why we've ended up with these car-based, car-like utilities today. But the fact of the matter is I'm trying to remember the last time I've been off-road. I used to go to the beach. I used to take my Jeeps to the beach once or twice a year at least and be able to drive on the sand. But other than that, other than rainy weather and driving through puddles, there's a reason that sport utilities are so popular today. We don't need them to go mudding. We don't need them to go back out into the trail for the most part. We like the high seating position, and we need a bunch of space to throw things in, and the security of all-wheel drive when the going gets a little wet or a little slippery. These are overkill. Even the Explorer is overkill. But the surprise for me was how well the Chevy did, honestly, bluntly. I really thought it would fall in at the bottom of the pack, and it didn't. They were very, very complimentary of it. I just wish there was more about the creature comforts and how they compared inside. Maybe I'll look and see if they've got another one somewhere else. But I hope you enjoyed this, guys, this little trip down memory lane. Let me know the order in which you would buy these back in the day. For me, I will go ahead and say the Cherokee's number one by a long shot. The Pathfinder would be number two. I really like the Pathfinder, really respect the Pathfinder. I want to say the Toyota here because of the reliability, but I'm not going to because I can't stand it, and I think it rode like it was filled with concrete. So I'd have to put, to my utter shame, I'd have to put the Explorer here because it was just comfortable. Next, I would probably have picked the Blazer. I think there's a lot of difference between the Explorer and the Blazer. That gap there for me is really large, but relative to this group, I'd put those two like that, and then probably put the Toyota down here. Now, interesting, as I'm thinking about it, if I was to add into this the Trooper and the Montero, and this would be the redesigned Montero, I'd have to say the Cherokee because I just love it. Truly, truly love it. Ooh, I'm not sure that I wouldn't put the Trooper, the Montero, and maybe the Pathfinder after that, just because I think they're cool. And the rest kind of fall the way it is. I'm not sure. That's kind of what I'm leaning towards, but let me know below. You know, if you owned one, let me know what you thought. Do you miss it? Do you love it? And what order would you have bought these in? Thanks, guys.